Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jack the Lad podcast. On today's episode we've got on Robbie Dinsdale. He is a triathlete who's also involved in a rather dubious crash with a van. He's currently he starts his officer training very soon in the RAF, where he also served alongside the Red Arrows. So please give a warm welcome, Robbie Dinsdale.
Thank you for having me on, Jack.
That's all right. No, not absolute pleasure, to be honest. I like to talk to people that have, that are educated and are sort of aligned with how what I do as well. Not necessarily how, you think or anything like that. But yeah, like obviously with me being in my sort of infancy of triathlons, you're obviously a bit further on. I'm always keen to learn from people that know more than me about that sport, and I'm always thirsty to learn. And this podcast has aided me with that no end, to be honest.
You do flatter me saying educated.
Well, I think you're slightly more educated than I am.
I don't know. No, so it started. So obviously today I did the Vitruvium up at Rutland Water. Hence, it's kind of ideal that I'll be able to come down here and actually do this in person.
Yep.
'Cause it's just around the corner, and that's the same triathlon I did back in 2019, which was my first. And today went pretty damn well, if I'm honest. Unfortunately, the bike segment was shorter because there was a gas leak somewhere along the route, so they had to change it. So I can't really say it's a personal best, but I still did a lot better than I did back in 2019, and also last year when I did another half Ironman. But yeah, I've been doing it for a fair few years now, triathlon. We've got a nice shiny new bike, but and it does get expensive. But then you don't need to spend that money. That's one thing that a lot of people will say, that you don't need to go out and spend £6,000 on an aero bike or a TT bike to be successful. I'm not fast with it, and I was being overtaken by people on fairly old normal road bikes. As much as I was also overtaking people on time trial bikes. Ones that were worth 3 or 4 times more than mine. It's the engine that's in it. Obviously, that's powers it, as it is with anything. You can put a body kit on a bloody Fiat Chiquento. It ain't gonna like a Ferrari one. It's not gonna work like a Ferrari. Yep. But in terms of what else I've done with that, I've done the Outlaw Half in Nottingham. It was a really good race because for me, I'm from Nottingham, and it was nice to have something local. I managed to get some of my friends involved, some watch and stuff. And then, that was meant to be in 2020. COVID happened, so it ended up being 2021, which was the year I was going to do the Outlaw Full, which is the equivalent of an Ironman.
Yep.
Only because Ironman is a brand, so to call it, you can't call it an Ironman. Essentially, it's the same distances though. And that is actually, as you mentioned before about the crash, that's where I had my crash. So swim went really well. I actually ended up swimming faster than I had on any of my halves. So at the halfway point, my watch indicated to me that I actually had swam faster than before. Then the cycle went pretty well. I started to bonk, which is like, I hadn't taken enough nutrients, and something from today's race that I've realised is I've not been taking enough sodium and salt and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what started making me feel sick, unable to take food on, and makes me feel. So I was already going quite slowly, and this is 90 miles in to the 112 miles, and that's when the van pulled out on me. It was just an unfortunate event of 2 cyclists went past him. He had a car in front of him that pulled off, going straight ahead. He was waiting to turn right, saw the 2 cyclists, just pulled off, and I went straight into his bonnet. It completely removed the forks off the bike, and fortunately I just had some soft tissue damage on the back of my knee. But one of the spectators had a bike. An official came up. Now, you're not meant in any triathlon, you're not meant to have any outside help. So that was the end of my race at that point. But the official did phone through to the head office, and they basically, I think, because I was already mostly towards the back, so I said, I'm not fast. I'm there. I do these as a race against myself, to improve myself, not to mean, of course, if I get higher, then I will want to one day. But for now, I'm happy just racing against myself. And I think because I was far enough back in the field, it's not like I was going to be stealing someone else's place.
Yeah.
So they let me borrow this guy's bike. And I mean, there was a spoke missing and the saddle was angled at some weird way, but I still had 25 miles to go as I was being thrown around on this bike. And I won't lie, I got, like, initially I was quite, the adrenaline was still in there, and there was like, yeah, I'm still going to get this done. I've got a little bit of a story for myself now and all that. About 10 minutes into the ride, it then hit me. It's like, I've just been hit by a van. I smashed his windscreen. I don't know how. I think it was my bike, but it could have been my helmet. Yeah, my head.
Yeah.
It's like, I should not be cycling right now. You know, I've got a daughter at home. Like, why am I doing this? This is stupid. But I continued. The marshal, he was great. He actually kept following me, and he'd stop about 2 miles up the road, wait for me, make sure I caught up. And eventually he stopped doing it when he saw that I was absolutely fine. But yeah, Outlaw, absolutely fantastic organisation for it. And the race, you need to do it. You need to do the Outlaw events if you want to do middle or long distance.
Yeah, that is the end goal. I've sort of set out a 3-year plan on that. I wanted to get into that with you as well. How did you get into triathlons? What was your starting journey? Because I don't recall it being something on your radar when we were both at Wittering.
So, Sergeant, Steve Green.
Yeah.
He's the main one who got me interested, because I was already cycling. I ran a little bit, didn't really do much swimming. I could swim, but I just never did it much. And I'd always had this inspiration. I wouldn't mind doing an Ironman one day. I had that from when first time I went to the Falklands in 2012. I did a sprint triathlon indoors, and I enjoyed it. And it was like, oh, maybe I could try and do an Ironman or something. I think mostly that when I was only 22, 23. I think I was doing it just to try and impress people that really didn't matter, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, it kind of grew legs, and then when Steve Green basically suggested, well, you've got the Vitruvian literally around the corner, you're based at Wittering. It's like, yeah, why not? Yeah, because that year as well, I had 3.5 months in Cyprus on Shader, and you did the job out there as well. That, you know, fuels that it was a reactive job. You went out, so a lot of the time was just waiting. So it was like, well, I could take my bike out there, and I got quite a bit of training done. Yeah, I cycled up to Troodos and back. Pushed it most of the way up the hill because I was not fit enough, and again, I didn't have the right nutrition. That's the steepest learning curve, and I think I've heard other triathletes refer to it as one of the disciplines that, you know, nutrition is key. And you'll always learn with it. You'll always have to test things out with your body, and see what works. But yeah, it's been quite the journey. But back to the Outlaw though, with the accident. Yeah, managed to finish that and limped around the marathon. I think the marathon took me 6 hours, which a fair bit. But I still my best mate. He has a house across on the other side of the River Trent, from where I was running. And so every time I ran past about 4 times because it was 2 laps, I think. Don't quote me on that. It might be. I think it's 2 laps. But anyway, every time they shouted across from the other side of the river, and then he was there with my mum, the missus and stuff at the finish line. It was great.
It sounds good. I mean, to have it local as well will make such a difference, because it does mean that you can have that support there from, you know, friends and family. That if it is, you know, sort of a certain distance away, then, you know, it's your journey. It's not, you know, it's not something. And I found that, back to the nutrition side of it, I found that on obviously I only did a Olympic distance. Yeah. But I was too worried about getting my transitions quicker that I ignored quite a bit of food that I'd sort of laid out, because I was doing my carnivore diet. So all their energy gels, I was like, I'm not carb, like I don't carb. So I had honey and like thick sliced ham in. So obviously I got my sugar and stuff. Didn't touch that the whole race. Literally on none of the 2 transitions, didn't touch it. And then I had bananas as well. I think I had one on one of the transitions. I got on the bike and then I was doing 40k. Yeah. And I got around on the second lap, and I was like, I'm feeling like I'm sort of cramping a bit.
Yeah.
So then when I got back in, I think that was when I had my banana. And then, on the run, I was like, so it's only 10K, but so I hit the 5K bit and I started getting cramp in my left legs. And I was like trying to like run, and I was sort of running with like shaking my legs off as I was running.
Yeah.
Which it seemed to work. It seemed to be worse if I stopped and then tried to start again. I was like, oh, fuck, it's just kicking in again.
Yeah.
So I just sort of took it steady. But from that, I was just like, I need to make sure that like my thing was on point. Because in the morning, obviously, I was there at 5 o'clock in the morning to like get set up and everything. Yeah. And I just didn't want to eat anything. Like I usually, with my job, I don't sort of eat until sort of 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. So I didn't fancy anything. So I maybe had like a few eggs and, a bit of ham. But it was just, I just thought I'll be fine. Yeah. And I'll eat that stuff as I, get hungry or whatever. But with it, I just didn't. And then I messed up on the swim. So I was like behind on my time that I was, hoping for and stuff. But overall it came in really well. But it was, it's definitely a discipline with obviously making your nutrition right. And even, I think whatever you're doing, whether you're on, like a traditional triathlon sort of diet with, carb loading and stuff like that, or obviously with myself, like I've not, especially in my training, I didn't see any dip in performance at all. If anything, it was better. Like I used to get really bad pains in my knees. That seemed to disappear over a couple of probably 2 or 3 months. After that, I was then fine. Like now, I go out running every day. I do at least 5K because I'm sort of aiming to average 35K a week. Yeah, just as sort of a benchmark, just to get the sort of distance in my legs and strengthening my tendons and all the rest of it. It's like race. It just sort of fell apart as it does. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like race day is like the day that it's gonna be the fuck ups and all the rest of it, because any sort of problems you have whilst training don't really matter because it's just training. You're on the next day, it goes fine, and whatever it is. So, but that was a big learning thing for me. Yeah,
definitely. Like when I did the Vitruvian the first time, I was saying obviously nutrition that fell down. My actual transitions were just not great. Admittedly, today my transition was slower. It wasn't awful, but I wasn't rushing. I wasn't interested in like getting my transition to be spot on. It was just like I just need to get my kit on, make sure I've got it. I will do better if I've got all my kit than if I knock 2 minutes off my transition and then I've forgotten my nutrition or something. Yeah, especially because like you're saying in carnivore, like I'm 100% veggie. Have grown up as one, vegetarian. So that's one difference that, from what I've read at least, that your glycogen stores are going to be much higher than mine, so you can go without food for longer, whereas as a vegetarian there's and I don't really have any references for this, so this is just what I've heard.
That's fine.
But it does seem to track that I can only last for about an hour. If I don't have anything to eat over an hour and I'm trained and I'm doing something for 2 hours, hour and a half, I'll bonk. I'll start feeling just that drained sort of feeling, and like the inability to push yourself as much as you wanted to. Yeah,
see, that's quite. I've never thought about that actually, about the glycogen levels. I have heard people talking about it, but the other day, I had a bit of time, which is a rarity these days. I'd finished work early, so I said, I'm going to I'll run to the gym, which is, I think it's just shy of 5 kilometers. So I ran to the gym, did an hour and a half workout, then I ran to my daughter's, and then from my daughter's we walked back here. So I didn't eat for probably 4 hours doing all that. I was fine. I got back and I don't think I ate anything until I had sort of dinner at 6, 7 o'clock. Yeah. I didn't really think about sort of that side of it, but so with because obviously I've had a couple of people on that have I had a vegan bodybuilder on the podcast a few episodes ago now, and obviously his physique's like incredible, like you wouldn't, I don't know, I think it's obviously a common misconception about obviously like vegans and that are sort of, well, I don't suppose nowadays as much, but I think it was that you couldn't get that size.
Yeah, you always associate it with malnourishment and stuff, which wasn't true, but you definitely, even as a vegetarian, I still have to make sure I eat the right thing. So my wife started eating vegetarian because I'm the cook in the house. Like she's not interested in cooking, whereas I am. So I naturally end up doing more cooking. And whilst I'm happy to cook her meat, for the most part, she's quite happy just eating what I cook, which is mostly veggie or corn, meat substitutes. Now, thing is, for about 2 or 3 months, she started just eating the food I was cooking, didn't eat any meat. Started to have some dizzy spells, feeling a bit unwell. Went to the doctors, and the doctor, when she explained that, the doctor said, "Look, unfortunately, you need to start eating fish." What it is with her is she was still eating the same quantities when she was eating meat. And at least for the way I feel, I often do. I eat a lot of food. I'm skinny as anything I can eat. Look, last night I had dinner at my mum's and I had a bloody plate full of macaroni cheese, peas, wedges, and it was just a massive load of carbs, and that won't, like, I won't put a load of weight on from that myself. But then also with what I did today, could burn it off. But yeah.
It is mad how it affects different people in different ways, and we sort of spoke on that, and we said that if you sort of stick with, obviously as long as you've not got sort of health issues where you've got to obviously go see a doctor about it. For me, it was just like the transition of, it's like going out is sort of, it's more of a problem being carnivore nowadays, eating out, than it is to be vegetarian or vegan, because there's always a vegan menu or vegetarian options on there. Whereas even if I go, like, I'm sort of limited on which establishments I can go into, because if I can't really go into an Italian, because they're pasta based, or pizza, or, you know what I mean, it's all carbs, so I can't ask for spaghetti and meatballs, but just the meatballs, please. So it kind of limits where you can go. So, and even when you go to, say, like a steakhouse or a pub, country pub, whatever, the mixed grill obviously comes with peas and mushrooms, onion rings, chips, all that, tomatoes. So I just say to them, I just want the meat, and then replace all of that. I'm quite cheeky with it. Most of the time they'll let me out, and I'll be like, "Can I get 4 fried eggs instead?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, no worries." So I'm like, boom, like I've got something to, because obviously just eating meat back to back is obviously it's just sort of samey. And for me, especially when I first started this, I was getting jaw ache before I felt like really full. So I was just like, I physically can't eat anymore because my jaw's fucking killing. And then you just sort of get used to it. And like now I'm up to, like on an evening, if I fancy it, I'll do like 2 8-ounce ribeyes, and then half a kilogram of 20% fat mince. And I was talking to my brother about it today, actually, and he's like, "What do you do with the mince then?" I was like, "I just ground it up in the pan while it's cooking, and then I just get a spoon and shove it in my mouth." And he's like, "Is that not horrendous?" And I was like, "Well, it is, but I'm eating it as fuel. Like I'm not looking at the food as something to, I call it mouth porn. So it's like, because it's in, I think from mouth to stomach takes like 7 seconds, but obviously the nutrition you get from it lasts obviously a lot longer than them 7 seconds. So and it's that sort of thing, just looking at food more as a fuel source rather than it as to taste. Because there's millions of things out there that taste not dairy milk. Like that's my favourite chocolate bar, 100% by a mile. But it's no good for you. So I limit that what I have, and don't get me wrong, I do go off piece, and I'll have a pizza every now and again or whatever like that, and there's no sort of ethical issues with me doing that. But it's quite strange how a lot of people, what's the right word? They're like, they always question me. Like whenever, if I speak to someone new, for example, and I'm like, it's a meat-based diet because I have meat and fruit. And they're like, "Oh, well, when are you going to stop doing that?" And I'm like, well, you wouldn't ask a vegan when they're going to stop doing, being vegan. And it's just quite strange, and it's obviously there's not a lot of us out there.
I think because also it's often, you often hear of people, "Oh, I'm doing the carnivore diet to put on a load of, put on muscle and stuff," and it almost sounds like they are just doing it because they are right, I've got this workout regime, I'm going to do this for 6 months, and as a result, I'm going to eat just that. You know, I'm just going to be carnivore, you know, eat meat and whatever, for those 6 months, and that's where that misconception comes from for it.
Yeah, my reasoning for doing the carnivore diet. Well, I love meat. Like, I've always been brought up around meat. My dad goes out shooting and stuff like that, and we always had pheasants hung up in the garage and stuff like that. It was always, you know, freezer full of meat and whatnot. So for me, the death of animals, I think, is part of us living. We've done it for millions of years.
So I'm just remembering with when there was that deer stuck in the Has Waste compound, and the animal control guy going into the woods after it had ran away, and you being like, I'm going to go ask him if what he does with it afterwards.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was 100%, because I'd messaged my dad as soon as we found out. That's quite a good story, actually. As soon as someone was like, "Oh, there's a deer stuck in the Has Waste compound," and I was like, "What do we do with that?" And then so I was like, "I'll go up. I'll go up and find." And we found the guy. So I rang my dad. I said, "If I can get this shot, and and he's sound with us taking it, like I'll." And he's like, "Yeah, no." And obviously he's got a Defender, 110 Defender. So he's like, "Yeah, I'll come up. He lives near Wittering, so he's like, I'll pull up and we'll chuck it in the back of the thing." Obviously, I spoke to the guy, and he was like, "Oh no, we'll just we'd scare it away." And that, because it's not, there's no issues with it sort of being in. You know what I mean? It's not gonna affect anything. So
I just remember the guy though when we called him up, and he was like, because he's the wildlife control guy. Can you do anything about it? Thinking like, he's got a bloody hoop or something to grab it with. It's like, oh no, I can shoot it. It's like, it's a hazardous waste compound. There's big signs there that says no flammable stuff. We've got fuels in here. You're not fucking shooting the damn thing.
I'd have risked it. I'd risked it for a nice side of meat.
I think that had happened another 3 or 4 times. We had one, and we eventually found the hole at the other end, at the back end of the fence. But yeah, I'd
forgot about that, to be honest. So you just mentioned that. But so because I was brought up around it, I've never seen sort of an issue with eating meat. I couldn't give up a bacon sandwich. I'm not going to lie to you. It's just. And like I say, I know other people got different opinions on it. Me and that, the vegan bodybuilder, I've known him for years. We went to school together. But we came to the sort of conclusion that obviously ethically for him, what I'm doing is wrong, but he understands that I can get the nutrition I need to perform. Yeah. And I agree that he can as well. I've got no issues. I've got no issues with anyone being vegan or vegetarian or whatever they want to be. If you want to, there's these breath control. They like live on air apparently, but I think some of them have been like found to obviously be eaten because I just feel like you die.
Yeah.
And it was sort of the junk in the middle that you should sort of, every now and again dip into. Some people don't. You've got like, at the other ends of the scale, and they're sort of massive advocates of each, is like that Joey Carbstrong. Yeah. And the Liver King. They're obviously at opposite ends of the scale. They would never agree. Both of them think the other way is the devil. Whereas, I would say normal people would look at it as, having a McDonald's every now and again. I use McDonald's as now. Obviously, there's all sorts of takeaways and restaurant, fast food restaurant chains. But having a McDonald's once a month, on a Friday, whatever, treat the kids and all that is not gonna harm you that much or make that much of a difference that in the grand scheme of things you won't be able to perform and do your job or whatever it is. But we both sort of said that it's the fact that crap food is so readily available nowadays that it's eaten daily, and eating well is the thing that happens rarely. Rather than what it should be, expensive. Which is the other way around.
It can get so expensive when you start trying to buy fruit and everything like that, and anything other than just a simple bit of veg or frozen veg. It ends up being just stupidly expensive. Yeah. But no, like for me, with the opinion of other people eating meat is, so like my mum is very anti, you shouldn't eat meat, etc. You shouldn't be killing animals and all that. I'm a bit more realistic with it, that I do see veganism and vegetarianism, there is an element of a luxury to it, because a lot, so especially for veganism, like things like avocados are imported. So in my opinion, you can't criticize people for eating meat when it's for hundreds of years, it's all that was really available to get a varied diet. I mean, again, I'm not a dietitian, nutritionist, and whatever. I am just talking from my own opinion here, but it's there is a certain element to it that I know that a lot of the food I have, if all of a sudden they just stopped making it, I'd be in trouble. You know, you can be a vegetarian in this country just on things that aren't imported, but I don't know whether you could manage it as a vegan, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that was something that when I started this journey on it, I sort of did a deep dive into, you know, what health benefits or side effects of just, you know, purely eating meat. Because I did start, when I first started, it was carnivore. It was, I just ate meat. And I got, I don't know, maybe a month, maybe 6 weeks in, and it does get samey. Like, even if you're changing the meat you're having, like, obviously I eat nose to tail, so I eat like liver, heart, kidneys, all the rest of it, and you can interchange all of that throughout the week and the muscle meats and all the rest of it, but it does still get samey. So I was like, so I started looking at different avenues that I could go to sort of get my sweet fix sort of thing, but not make it detrimental to my training and what I was aiming for. And yeah, fruit was like the main thing. I follow someone on Instagram called Carnivore MD. Yeah, it's 2.0 now, I think. And he's the same. He's fruit and meat. But like you say, it's all very much because we're so, you know, well off, and it is sort of especially with like the veganism, like you say, because they're saying they don't want to eat, but I suppose it's the same my way as well. Like, I'm choosing not to eat certain things that, you know, people in other countries would, you know, love to have that, not even have that as an option, that it's just that nearly went. Yeah,
we did say it would.
So it is, you know, there is a massive minefield out there with the food and all the rest of it. But yeah, I think overall, if you can cut out all the shit, you know, the junk food, and people know what junk food is. It's like when you go around the supermarkets, you see no end of people with like ice creams in, and, you know, chips and
ready meals in general. Ready meals. Yeah,
and it's just like, and you look at I was looking at something the other day, and it was, I think it was a frozen item, and there was just so much in it, and I was like, this is, you don't need like all of this in it, and I can't remember what it was. I'm blanking it. But yeah, so yeah, obviously so my original thing, the reason I actually went onto the diet was because my stepbrother is vegetarian.
Oh yeah.
And he's sort of dwindled up. It's with him and his wife. They were pescatarian, then they went to vegetarian, and their son's vegan now because he can't eat, I think he's lactose intolerant, and he's got allergy to eggs or something. Yeah. So he has to eat vegan because obviously what they have he can't have, and so that limits him obviously just to fruit, veg, and grains and stuff. So yeah, so that was the reason, because he was doing the same triathlon. Yeah. I said, well, you're doing it that way, I'm going to do it the other way, and see if, you know, I can complete. Obviously, I was coming from a completely much further back starting block, because at the time I was 18 stone. He was, you know, he's built like you really. He's only a bit taller than me. I think he's about 6'1". Yeah. But built very similarly to yourself. So it was like, in my head, I was like, can I squash that gap and do it whilst on, you know, on my thing? And I was, you know, my first 10k run, not 10k run, 5k run that I did was 36 minutes. Yeah. I went out the other day for a chill run. It was the day before I had football, so I was like, I'm not going to go hard. And this comes up with all the, you know, suggested thing, and I was like, so I want it on a sort of an easy rest day, a rest run. And and I did the 5k, and I did it in like 35 minutes. And I was like, I'm now running it was like, it felt just more than a walk. Yeah. Now, when that was me like blowing out my ass, that was as good as I could do, and that was only, well, Christmas time, so like 8-9 months ago. So yeah, I'm massively on this journey, and I'm really well. I need to chat to my old man about it. By the time this comes out, I will have had this chat anyway, so it won't matter. About him reining it in, because he's on like, he'll do like a beer a night. Yeah, but he's you know, he's very well off. But he thinks nothing about having a beer a night. But he's done all of his sort of thing. He cycled across Vietnam for charity.
Yeah.
He did the London Marathon, and so he's he was a fit lad, and he played tri-service football when he was in the RAF many moons ago. So he's has his sort of athletic background, and he's got some good accolades there really. But yeah, now he's just he's 57 or 58, sorry, and and he's just I have a beer a night. And I'm like, you need to cut that out, Dad. Like having a beer on a Friday night, Saturday night, whatever. Yeah, do it. But rather than doing that beer for half an hour, go out for a walk instead, and and just it doesn't have to be arduous. Just get out and get the blood flowing a little bit.
Just find a pub that you have to walk to. To go for a pint. But then that ends up it's a dangerous game.
It is a dangerous game because the pub is at the bottom of his back door, basically. It's from I reckon from his garage to the pub is, or in fact his front door to the front door of the pub is less than 50 metres.
Brilliant.
So yeah, he'd have to walk past the pub to get to any other pub. So to
be fair, that's one thing though. I do like a drink. I'm more than happy to have a drink, but in the past 6 months I've not intentionally cut it out. I've just not had as many opportunities. Because I'm a part of the officers' mess at Cosford, I did do I was able to attend the summer ball that they had going on, which was massive because they had 2 years worth of funds for it because it hadn't happened for 2 years, and it was absolutely amazing. And I had a drink that night, but then I didn't drink for about 2 or 3 weeks afterwards, and that has helped a lot. I mean, I'm not saying binge drinking is good, but when you just go out once every so often, and as a result, start of the year I was about 95 kilos. I'm now 84. A few bugs that my daughter brought home from nursery has helped that as well, admittedly. But I've not put it back on because I've not been drinking. Whenever I have had a drink, because when I did the cycle up to Orkney, from Inverness to Orkney, I did end up having a pint or two in the evening, because the first night I was in a pub. So, of course, I was waiting for the ferry the second night, and there was a pub. So, yeah, I had a few, and, I kind of because of that, I maintained my weight rather than losing anything with the 500-odd kilometres that I did. So, thank you for correcting me on that one, because I undersold myself on my Instagram post saying 475, and you're like, you did 5 days and over 100 kilometres every day. So, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. No, as soon as I saw it, I was like, that doesn't add up. And I checked through every single day, because there was one day that you had 2 inputs. That
was where I got to the port and had a 2-hour wait.
So then I was looking through it, and I was like, so then when I checked him, I was like, has he put up a photo twice? Yeah. Or has he included it twice? So I looked at obviously locations and obviously the just the general direction of you travelling and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, no, absolutely not. He's put in 6 inputs here over 5 days. Yeah. And all of them add up. Each day was over 100, and them 2 add up to over 100 also. Yeah. So there's no way it can be 400 because that maths doesn't add up. Yeah. So I got the calculator out, punched it all in. I was like, this is your actual total, not what you've put down. But no, that was that Orkney trip that you had. It looked amazing. Obviously, I follow you on Instagram and stuff, and it's really cool.
I did enjoy it. It was it's something I'd been. It was going to be the North Coast 500, but the course that I'm on right now, we don't have much warning until quite close to with our assignments and stuff. And unfortunately, my assignment fell in such a way that I had to do it over my leave. It was quite a large assignment, so it was like I can't spend an entire week of my 2 weeks off doing this. So I had to knock it down to the 5 days that I did do to make sure I got the assignment done. And ended up the main motivation was going to Orkney, to the town of Twat. With 2 T's. Quite hard to find because there's no signposts, funnily enough, but I think that's because everyone nicks them. But there's a church there that says Church of Twat. And it's such a childish thing to do, but it motivated me to do it. And Orkney was lovely. Went around the town on there, and it's just, I was saying to you before earlier, it was like, I was expecting the Falklands, just it's just mostly farms and stuff like that, but it's naive of me as well, but it's actually, there's a lot there, the town feels like, you feel like you're on the mainland still.
Yeah. What was the sort of biggest surprise for you on that Orkney trip?
how far I could cycle, because I had a handlebar bag and a bar bag, frame bag, and a bag on the back of my saddle, and so there was a lot of weight. Yet I was still, especially on the first day, I caught up with a peloton of people. I don't know if they're doing the North Coast 500. Most of them were faster than me when they got to a hill, but then there was about 3 or 4 of them that I was overtaking, and they had nothing on their bikes. I'm like, this shouldn't be happening. I've got at least 10 kilos extra weight on my bike, and I'm flying past you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did average about 60 miles a day, and then on the day that I got back from John O'Groats, stayed there, then did 100 miles to the Craskin, which if you ever go up that way, Craskin, it's near Legg. Beautiful little. It's just a little pub, and run by a couple, and yeah, you can stay there. They're really friendly, and the food's great.
Yeah, good. Well, we're gonna bring this episode to a close.
Yeah.
Tune in next week, ladies and gentlemen, for part 2 of Robbie Dinsdale. Thank you very much for coming in.
No problem.
Cheers for listening, everyone.